Now please look at the poem. I wandered lonely as a cloud. We'll do a close reading of this poem. I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high over vales and hills, when all at once I saw the crowd, a host of golden daffodils, beside the lake, beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze, continuous as the stars that shine and twinkle on the Milky Way. They stretched in never-ending line along the margin of a bay, 10,000 sauri at a glance, tossing their heads in sprightly dance. The waves beside them danced, but they outdid the sparkling waves in glee. A poet could not but be gay in such a jocund company. I gazed and gazed, but little thought what wealth the show to me had brought. For oft, when on my couch I lie in vacant or in pensive mood, they flash upon that inward eye which is the bliss of solitude. And then my heart with pleasure fills and dances with the daffodils. Now let's look at the poem line by line. I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high over vales and hills. The first image of this poem, I wandered lonely as a cloud, immediately establishes both the poet's solitude, being alone by himself, and his connection with the natural world. We see that the poet, or the speaker, I, floats on high over the scene, and yet is still part of the sea. And the lively sound effect of these two perfect, iambic tetrameter lines reinforces the harmonious relationship between the subject, I, and the object, natural elements, or humanity and nature. When all at once I saw the crowd, a host of golden daffodils, beside the lake, beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze. Now, in these 4 lines, we, the reader, are brought back into a story. And the poet wanders through a landscape and is struck by the sight of a field of daffodils. But the dancing image of these flowers, fluttering and dancing in the breeze, seems to have echoed back to the lonely I, floating on high over vales and hills. And the message here is that even if the speaker I, a human being, is alone by himself in nature, he does not feel lonely. He dances with natural objects. Professor Luo says that Wordsworth's love for nature is boundless. To him, nature means more than rivers, trees, mountains, lakes, and so on. Nature is for him the embodiment of the divine spirit. He believes that God and universe are identical. To Wordsworth, nature is the greatest of all teachers, and those who are uncorrupted by urban society, especially those simple rustic people, can communicate directly with nature, which gives them power, peace, and happiness. Continuous as the stars that shine and twinkle on the Milky Way, they stretched in never-ending line along the margin of a bay, 10,000 sauri at a glance, tossing their heads in sprightly dance. In this stanza, lines 7 to 12, the flowers are compared to stars that shine and twinkle on the Milky Way. They remind the speaker of the stars at night in brightness and multitude. They stretched in never-ending line along the margin of a bay. So the dancing image recurs in this stanza, shining, twinkling, tossing, revealing a sense of joy, unity, and continuity in the natural elements of air, water, and earth. The waves beside them danced, but they outdid the sparkling waves in glee. A poet could not but be gay in such a jocund company. I gazed and gazed, but little thought what wealth the show to me had brought. In this third stanza, lines 13 to 18, the speaker goes on to compare the flowers to the sparkling waves of a nearby lake. The image of the sparkling waves not only echoes back to the images of the floating cloud, the shining and twinkling stars in the first two stanzas, but also introduces a kind of fusion by which heaven, earth, and water are joined in the vision of dancing daffodils. So here, in this passage, we have some messages. Message 1. These images convey the qualities of radiation and movement. Float, shine, twinkle, sparkle. Together with the repetitions of the word dance, these images create a picture of nature as vital, animated, and glowing. Message 2. The relationship between poet, speaker, and the landscape is one of intimate unions, suggesting an identity of mood between subject and object, humanity and nature. Poet could not but be gay in such a jocund company. Message 3. The experience of seeing, I gazed and gazed, becomes the subject of the poem. The vision and the attendant emotion are what the poet brings away from the experience and later recreates in memory and imagination. Message 4. The wealth suggests a kind of heightened sense of delight the daffodils first brought him. Later in his life, this sweet memory in the past will come back and delight him. Message 5. The poet develops the vision of daffodils as the central event, emphasizing the act of seeing and exploring its philosophical significance. Thus, the imagery describing the scene becomes particularly important, for it is through figurative language that Wordsworth explores the relationship between subject and object, humanity and nature. Now the last stanza. For oft when on my couch I lie in vacant or in pensive mood, they flash upon that inward eye which is the bliss of solitude, and then my heart with pleasure fills, dances with the daffodils. Solitude, the idea of solitude, is central to the poem. The image of the poet wandering lonely as a cloud opens the poem and establishes the atmosphere in which the poet's vision occurs. And solitude is once again the poet's condition at the end of the poem, as he lies on his couch apart from nature, yet still somehow connected to it through the power of imagination. So the last stanza as a whole describes the operation of imagination upon the fragments of past experience. A single brief event which occurred in a distant summer landscape has brought the poet permanent wealth in terms of the ability both to recall the visual scene and to recapture the emotional mood. Therefore, an analogous movement is suggested within the final stanza by words vacant and feels. The emptiness of speaker's spirit is transformed into a fullness of feeling as he remembers the daffodils. Besides, the idea of recurrence is suggested by the flash of vision, which is connected with the radiation of the original flowers, and by the dancing of the poet's heart, which recalls the animation of the scene. Thus, that inward eye, which is the bliss of solitude, is the creative imagination and the human capacity to remember and reproduce experience. This creative power, common to all people, is more highly developed in the poet, who composes poems out of emotion recollected in tranquility. In other words, through that inward eye of memory, other moods of loneliness, listlessness can be animated with a sense of fulfillment, which was captured on the distant summer landscape. The poem is an intensely personal one. It communicates a purely subjective experience, but it suggests something else about himself and about every one of us.